Immigration is an asset. My name is Sandra Ferreira. I'm a licensed psychotherapist with over 30 years of clinical experience working with immigrants from all over the world and studying ethnopsychology. This has led me to better understand not only the psychology of the immigrant individuals, but the phenomena of immigration itself. What is immigration and why people immigrate? So I'm happy to say that you all leave here pleasantly surprised and excited after learning how the lives of every single person in this room and every human being in our planet depends on immigration. And if it wasn't for immigration, none of us would be here today. People tend to see immigration as a problem of the modern world, placing immigrants in one side and everybody else on the other, almost as different categories of people, with immigrants being the inferior race. We see voluntary and involuntary migratory movements in every country throughout history. Voluntary immigration is when one decides to relocate from one place to another. Some do it to flee hunger, misery, war, or persecution. Others do to work transfer, school, research, family, or for ideological motives such as charity, missionaries, etc. Involuntary immigration happens in cases of human trafficking, kidnapping, or slavery. So migratory status does not define the individual. It's something that can happen with any of us. In my case, I have never dreamed of living in the United States. I enjoyed a very comfortable life in Brazil with 2 successful careers, both as a psychologist and an opera singer. All of a sudden, the experimental research I have started in a hospital I worked at in São Paulo developed into connections between me, my research supervisor, and faculties from New York University for collaboration, and this brought me here to a master's program at NYU. I was very reluctant at first, as this would mean leaving my well-established life in Brazil. I finally accepted with the intention to graduate as soon as possible and to go back to my 3 jobs in São Paulo. Then I got married, had a child, and here I am 22 years later. But who are the first immigrants? The Irish, Italians, and Germans coming to the Americas in masses, fleeing hunger and poverty after the 2 world wars? The ones who are part of a massive migratory movement, mostly in Europe, between 300 and 568 after the fall of the Western Roman Empire? The Israelites living their slave life in Egypt towards the Promised Land between 1224 and 1211 before Christ? Archaeology shows us that immigration started back 1.75 to 2 million years ago, when the first Homo erectus left Africa, which, by the way, is where our species originated. The scientist Christopher Henshinwood from Bergen University in Norway affirmed that the movements of exploration of new lands, or immigration, represented a determinant factor for the human dominant status over nature. It gave the human species the ability to perpetuate themselves and to dominate the other species, giving them enormous advantages in the adaptation process in our planet. Therefore, immigration is a recurrent, adaptive, and natural phenomenon evolving the human race, which in search for survival creates diversity and longevity. The intensive propaganda against specific races and ethnicities varies depending on our time in history and from country to country. However, they are all based on political and economic agendas, which in turn are based on outdated principles of competition, exploitation, and oppression. Scientific developments drove us farther and farther from a spiritual connection with each other and with nature. Darwinism believes that evolution depends on the stronger prevailing over the weaker. This mindset led humanity to an exacerbation of aggressive competitiveness, which in turn led us to 2 world wars. After the Second World War left Europe and part of Asia in total ruins, political and social scientists started to realize that this mindset of the strong prevailing over the weaker would not progress the human race, but lead us to total destruction. While Darwinism is based on competition and individual survival, quantum physics, system theory, and other holistic sciences proves the interdependence of all there is in the universe. Holism is a concept through which everything in the universe is part of an indivisible wholeness rather than the sum of individual parts. Most indigenous people led their lives and structured their society under a holistic point of view. Scientific progress drove us away from holism and more towards an individualistic perspective. Even though modern science helped us to understand better our individual components, it caused us to abandon our understanding of our collective whole. Fortunately, new scientific developments brought us back to holism, now with a better and deeper ability to understand and to explain the universe under a holistic lens. The studies of the Austrian biologist Ludwig von Bertalanffy started in 1925 and led him to develop a new science called system theory, published between 1950 and 1968. Making a bridge between natural and social sciences, system theory helps science to understand the non-physical reality, including social and psychological phenomena, as a continuous ecosystem where everything is interrelated, interconnected, and interdependent, basically holism. Biology has established the rules through which nature works. The organisms, organic systems, mutations, and adaptive behaviors, which grants benefits to the whole ecosystem, continues. In the same note, the ones who harm it becomes extinct. Nature self-regulates in this evolutionary saga for self-preservation. There is no individual self-preservation without the preservation of the whole ecosystem. Therefore, under system theory, following those biological principles of self-regulation, prioritizes the common good, the ecosystem. This can be observed in every system, including families, social groups, cultures, corporations, etc., not only in nature. Under system theory, the parts can never be understood or treated in isolation, as it ultimately does not exist without the whole. Even though it carries in its core the basic imprint of the system in which it belongs, it does not reflect the true complexity of the system at large. For example, understanding and analyzing a single transistor in a telecommunication center will not be enough to help us to understand the whole network, even though its defect will affect the whole net and all the other transistors in the system, which automatically take over the signals the defected transistor will not be able to decode and retransmit further. So any exclusion, change, or segregation of any individual part will cause a damage and reshift in the whole system. The idea that evolution depends on competition is a distortion of reality. Adjustment and adaptation does not imply deliberately destroying our co-inhabitants, but pursuing flexibility to adjust to the environment. For that matter, collaboration and cooperation with the environment proves more effective in this adjustment process. Living under those outdated principles of competition, racism, and discrimination, we are living as cancer cells working against the same environment to which we all belong. The American physicist David Bohm, one of the most important contributors to modern quantum physics, explained through concepts of holo movement and holographic reality that the universe is an indivisible wholeness which works under explicate and implicate orders. That is, all matter, substance, and all that's manifested exists in an explicate order, and all energy, space, and all that's not manifested in an implicate order. Both are equally important and inseparable components of reality. Through the implicate order, the energy of all that exists in the universe is interrelated, and through which we feel the constructive and destructive effect of each other and the environment over us and vice versa. In other words, according to quantum physics, we are all in this together, whether we like it or not. As we all depend on each other, any segregation, exclusion, or discriminatory division causes an illness in everyone else. No other species is able to survive in every part of the globe as we do thanks to immigration. In the beginning of evolution as a species, we are only able to survive in a small area in Africa where the Homo erectus originated. It took us millions of years of trials and failures, which meant that trying again and again until little genetic mutations started to happen, and with the accumulation of the genetic mutations, we got to who we are now as a human race. In evolution, everything we don't use, we lose. If immigration has granted us the strength and superiority as a species through the millennia, why would it not continue to be important now? It's about time for us to stop living in this outdated mindset of competition, racism, and discrimination, and start behaving under a more evolved and mature attitude where we can honor our ancestors who recurrently died to grant us the status we have today. To be more mature, to understand that collaboration and respect for our differences are both the new scientific trend and the only choice we have to preserve our species and planet. Political and economic regimes come and go, but our species need to behave in ways that enable us to survive through them all. Survive by respecting our brave immigrants around the world who keep our adaptability as a species in shape. Survive by respecting our differences and honoring our diversity, which are the most essential advantages we painfully acquire through the trials of errors. Survive by understanding that we are all interconnected, interdependent, all species, all nations, humanity amongst themselves, humans and nature. Immigration and diversity are our greatest assets. Thank you.